It all started that day. It had been a while since I last stayed at home, and walking through the front door felt like stepping into a time capsule. The smell of lemon cleaner and the familiar creak of the floorboards brought memories flooding back. I had moved out years ago, leaving behind my childhood bedroom and the bond I'd shared with my younger sister, Emma. We'd grown up close, but over time, I had become distant. College, then work, life, everything seemed to pull me away. When our parents left town for a few days, I agreed to stay with Emma. They worried about her being alone, but I agreed more out of guilt than anything else. I hadn't visited in far too long. The first few hours passed in typical sibling fashion. We traded stories about school, life, and the occasional teasing. Emma was easy to talk to, and I could tell she was happy to have me back, even if only for a short time. But as the evening wore on, something felt different. Emma had changed, and I wasn't sure when it happened. She was still the same girl I'd grown up with, but there was an undeniable confidence about her now. Her long hair, the way her smile was a little more knowing, the way she moved, it was all different. I couldn't help but notice how beautiful she had become. My heart skipped a beat whenever our eyes met, and I wasn't sure why. We settled on watching a movie, something familiar. We'd seen it dozens of times when we were younger, and I thought it would be the perfect thing to relax. As the opening credits rolled, Emma flopped onto the couch next to me. Her knee brushed mine as she got comfortable, and I could feel the warmth of her body so close. I shifted uncomfortably, trying to ignore the strange feeling in the pit of my stomach. For the most part, we laughed, joked, and recited our favorite lines from the movie, but every now and then I caught Emma looking at me, not in a way that made me uneasy exactly, but in a way that felt different. My heart fluttered in my chest, but I told myself I was imagining things. After all, she was my sister. There was nothing strange about the way she looked at me, right? By the time the movie ended, I felt a strange tension between us. It wasn't something I could put into words. Maybe it was because she was growing up, and I didn't know how to handle it. I realized that I didn't really know Emma anymore, not the way I used to. "Thanks for hanging out," she said, her voice soft as she stood up. "It was fun, even if you picked a boring movie." I laughed, trying to brush off the weird feeling that had settled in my chest. Yeah, whatever. You missed me." She gave me a playful smirk, but there was something else behind it, a certain intensity in her eyes that made me swallow hard. "You're right," she said, her smile lingering a little longer than usual. "I did." As she disappeared upstairs, I sat there for a moment trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The house was quiet now, the faint hum of the refrigerator my only company. The more I thought about it, the more unsettled I felt. Something had changed between us, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something neither of us could control. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Emma humming softly in the kitchen. It was a song she always played when she was in a good mood. I smiled, the familiar sound grounding me in the moment, but that unease from last night lingered. I dressed quickly, pushing the strange feelings to the back of my mind. I couldn't afford to be distracted. When I walked into the kitchen, Emma was already making breakfast, eggs and toast. A simple meal, but it smelled so comforting. Her presence felt more alive, somehow more vibrant. As she flipped the eggs, I watched the way her hair fell over her shoulder, the way her shirt clung to her back. I noticed the subtle curve of her waist, how grown up she looked in the light of the morning. It made something stir in me that I wasn't sure how to deal with. "Morning," she said, glancing over her shoulder with a smile. "Made your favorite." I sat at the table, my thoughts a tangled mess. "Thanks," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. She set a plate in front of me and sat down across from me. "So," she said casually, taking a bite of her eggs, "you're not planning to go back to the city anytime soon, are you?" I shook my head, trying to ignore the flutter in my chest. "I've got some things to take care of. I'll probably stay for a while." "Good," she said, her smile softening as she met my gaze. "I'm glad. It's nice having you here." Her words hit me harder than I expected. A part of me wanted to reach across the table and tell her everything that was swirling in my mind, but another part of me was afraid of what would happen if I did. She wasn't the same little girl anymore, and whatever was happening between us, whatever I was feeling, wasn't something I could just ignore. We ate breakfast in silence, and for a while, it was comfortable, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was walking a tightrope, one wrong step away from tipping everything over. After breakfast, we decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. The fresh air would clear my head. At least, that's what I told myself. Emma seemed eager, her usual energy on full display. We stepped out onto the sidewalk, the warm sun casting long shadows across the ground. It felt like a scene out of my childhood, the two of us walking side by side, chatting aimlessly about everything and nothing. But again, every time she brushed against me, my stomach clenched, and I couldn't tell if it was nerves or something deeper. "I still can't believe you're living in the city now," she said, glancing up at me as we walked. "Seems so far from home." I shrugged. "It's different, but it's not bad. You'd probably love it there." "Maybe one day," she said thoughtfully, her pace slowing. "I don't know. I like it here, with everything being familiar." I looked at her then. Really looked at her. She was no longer the girl I remembered. She was a woman now. Someone who had grown in ways I couldn't quite understand. The realization hit me hard. She wasn't just Emma anymore, she was someone else entirely. Her gaze shifted to mine, and for a moment, there was something in the way she looked at me. Something unspoken, but undeniably real. I couldn't quite place it, but it made the air between us feel heavy. She was waiting for something. I didn't know what, but the intensity in her eyes told me that whatever it was, it had to be addressed. We reached the park at the end of the street, and Emma sat on one of the swings. Her legs, long and slender, barely touched the ground as she kicked back, her eyes closed as she soaked in the sunshine. I stood beside her for a moment, unsure whether to join her or not, but before I could decide, she looked up, her smile slow and inviting. "Come on, swing with me," she teased, patting the seat next to her. I hesitated, but something in me couldn't resist. I sat down on the swing next to hers, pushing off the ground gently. We swung together, the familiar rhythm almost calming, but as I moved back and forth, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading somewhere I wasn't prepared for. "So, what have you been up to in the city?" she asked, her voice casual, but there was a weight behind her words. "Same old. Work, stress, trying to figure things out." I paused, unsure how to continue. "Abby, it's not as easy as I thought it'd be." "Life never is," she said, a small laugh escaping her lips. "But I get it. Sometimes, things don't go the way you expect." For a second, I swore there was something more in her words, something layered under the surface. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. But before I could speak, she stood, dusting herself off. "Come on," she said brightly. "Let's go back. It's getting hot out here." As we walked back to the house, the distance between us felt like it was getting smaller. The words unspoken were starting to pile up, and I knew it was only a matter of time before one of us said something we couldn't take back. Little did I know, the real conversation, one that would change everything, was just around the corner. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of routine. Emma and I kept to ourselves, though the air between us still felt thick, laden with things unsaid. Every time I looked at her, I saw more than just the girl I used to know. She was no longer my little sister. She was a woman, grown, changed, and now, carrying something I couldn't ignore. That night, after dinner, we sat together on the couch, the dim light of the TV flickering across the room. The silence was louder than any noise. The space between us charged in a way that made it hard to breathe. I could feel her presence, her warmth, her scent, her every move, and it made everything inside me feel alive in ways I couldn't explain. "You okay?" she asked softly, her voice breaking the silence. Her eyes were fixed on the screen, but I knew she wasn't watching the movie. Neither of us was. I nodded, though the tightness in my chest made my answer feel like a lie. "Yeah, just tired." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You sure? You've been kind of distant today." I looked at her, my heart skipping a beat. Was it obvious? Had she already figured it out? "Just thinking," I said, though it was only half the truth. I was trying to avoid the thoughts that had been circling my mind ever since we'd come back from the walk. "About what?" she pressed, her voice soft, but there was a hint of something in it, something like concern, or maybe curiosity. I shrugged, though the tension in my body made it feel like I was lying. "Stuff, family. You know." She nodded, but there was something in her eyes that made me feel exposed. She wasn't buying it. A few moments of silence passed, and just when I thought maybe she'd drop it, she turned to me, her eyes searching my face. "Leah." Is there something between us that we need to talk about? Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. She couldn't possibly know, could she? Could she feel what I was feeling? I couldn't speak. The words were stuck somewhere deep inside me, a tangled mess I didn't know how to untangle. Instead, I swallowed hard and looked away, staring at the TV as though the answer might somehow appear there. She was quiet for a long time, and I could feel her gaze on me, sharp and steady. Then, just as I thought the moment might pass, she spoke again, her voice low and tentative. "Leah," she began slowly, "I've been feeling like things are different between us, and I'm not sure what to do about it." My pulse quickened. This wasn't a conversation I'd been prepared for. Not now, not like this. "I don't know what you mean," I said, my voice sounding too tight, too forced. "Things are fine." But as soon as the words left my mouth, I knew they were a lie. Things were far from fine. Things were anything but fine. "I don't know if I believe that," she whispered, her eyes locking onto mine. "I think you're feeling it too. Whatever this is, this tension." Her words were like a crack in the dam, and I could feel everything inside me threatening to spill over. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about us, about what we were becoming, about what we were on the verge of crossing. "I don't want to lose you," she said, her voice so soft that it almost broke me. I looked at her, and in that moment I saw everything. The vulnerability, the rawness in her expression. She wasn't just speaking to me as a sibling, she was speaking to me as someone who felt something more, something I wasn't ready to admit to myself. "You won't lose me," I said, though my own voice felt like it was betraying me. "You're my sister, Emma. Nothing will change that." She nodded slowly, though the sadness in her eyes told me she didn't believe me. Neither did I. The room was silent again, but it wasn't peaceful. The silence was heavy now, as if the walls around us were closing in, pushing us closer together until we couldn't pretend anymore. I stood up abruptly, the weight of the moment almost unbearable. "I'm going to bed," I said, my voice tight. "We'll figure this out tomorrow." She didn't say anything as I walked toward the stairs, but I could feel her eyes on me, piercing, searching. I had no idea what to do anymore, no idea how to fix whatever had started to unravel between us. When I reached my room, I closed the door behind me, sinking down onto the bed. My heart was racing, my thoughts scattered and chaotic. I didn't know what was happening to me, to us. All I knew was that things couldn't go back to the way they were. Then, just as I was about to lie down, I heard a soft knock at the door. "Leah?" Her voice was quiet, barely audible through the wood. I froze. "What is it, Emma?" I asked, my voice betraying the uncertainty I was feeling. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. "Please." My breath caught in my throat. This was it. This was the moment I had been dreading. I opened the door, and she was standing there, her face a mixture of determination and vulnerability. Her gaze met mine, and I felt something shift. She stepped inside without waiting for me to respond, and as the door clicked shut behind her, I knew there was no going back now. What Emma was about to say would push both of us further into unknown territory, and I couldn't have prepared myself for it. I closed the door behind her, my heart pounding in my chest as Emma stepped further into the room. The weight of the silence between us felt almost unbearable. The air was thick, charged with the unspoken words and the growing tension I had tried so hard to ignore. Her eyes were on me, intense and searching, and I couldn't escape the feeling that she could see right through me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. What was I supposed to say to her now? How could I explain the storm of emotions inside me? I don't know what to say," Emma whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She shifted on her feet, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "But I can't pretend like everything is okay anymore. I feel like we've crossed a line." I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. I knew exactly what she was talking about, but I wasn't sure I was ready to acknowledge it. Not yet, not in the way that would make it real. "I feel it too," I admitted quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. The truth of it stung more than I expected. I've been trying to push it away, trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore. Emma's face softened, the vulnerability in her eyes sending a wave of guilt washing over me. She was my sister. She was everything to me, and yet, in this moment, I wasn't sure where we stood. Everything had shifted, and I didn't know how to put the pieces back together. "I don't want to hurt you, Leah," she said, her voice breaking. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, yeah. I'm scared." I'm scared of what I'm starting to want, of what this is between us, but I can't deny it. Not anymore." Her words hit me like a wave, crashing over me with such force that I could hardly breathe. I stepped back, my mind racing, but I couldn't move far enough away from her. The space between us had closed so quickly, so completely, that it was impossible to ignore. "I never wanted to hurt you either," I said, my voice shaking now. "But I can't deny what's happening either. It's like everything we've ever known is shifting, and I don't know how to stop it." There was no answer, only the raw, heavy silence that followed. Emma took a hesitant step toward me, her gaze never leaving mine. "I don't know if this is wrong," she said softly, her voice laced with uncertainty. "But it feels so right, Leah. When I'm with you, when you're near me, it feels like we belong together in a way that doesn't make sense, but it doesn't stop me from wanting it." My heart skipped a beat at her words, and before I knew it, I was closing the distance between us. My hand reached out, almost on instinct, and I cupped her cheek. Her skin was soft beneath my touch, and the warmth of her made my pulse race. "Emma," my voice cracked, and I felt the weight of everything we were about to do. I knew this wasn't something we could undo, no matter how much we wanted to. But in this moment, the lines blurred so completely that I couldn't tell where I ended and she began. She looked up at me, her eyes wide, filled with both fear and longing. "Please don't push me away," she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. "I don't know how to fix this, but I know I can't stop feeling this way, not anymore." I couldn't stop myself. I leaned in, closing the distance between us until my lips brushed against hers. It was light at first, tentative, as if we were both testing the waters. But when I felt her respond, when I felt the heat of her lips against mine, something inside me broke wide open. All the tension, all the fear, all the confusion, it melted away, and all that was left was the undeniable need between us. The kiss deepened, and I felt her hands move to my waist, pulling me closer. My hands found their way to her back, tracing the lines of her body, memorizing every curve. I had kissed so many people in my life, but this was different. This was electric. This was everything I had been denying, everything I had been running from. We pulled away for a moment, both of us gasping for breath, our foreheads pressed together. "Leah," she breathed, her voice trembling. This isn't wrong, is it?" I didn't know how to answer her. How could I tell her that what we were doing was dangerous? How could I say that this was a line we shouldn't cross when everything inside me was screaming to go further? But instead of answering, I kissed her again, this time harder, deeper, as if I could somehow erase all the guilt, all the fear, as if I could make it all go away by simply being with her. I felt her hands slip under my shirt, the warmth of her touch sending a wave of heat through me. My heart was racing, and every part of me was screaming to pull back, to stop before we went too far. But the other part of me, the part that had been holding back for so long, was telling me to give in, to let go of all the rules and embrace what was happening between us. I pulled her close, my hands running down her body, feeling the softness of her skin beneath my fingertips. I could feel her shudder against me, and I knew that we were both fighting the same battle, the battle between what was right and what felt so damn good. For a moment, we just stood there holding each other, our bodies pressed together in a way that felt both natural and terrifying. I could feel her heart pounding beneath my fingertips, and I knew she was just as lost in this as I was. "Emma," I breathed, my voice shaky, "we can't keep doing this." But my words felt empty, hollow, as if they didn't matter anymore. I knew the truth. We were already too far gone. The desire, the need, it was too strong to ignore. "I don't care," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't care about the consequences anymore. I just want you." And just like that, I knew. We had crossed the line. There was no going back. The room seemed to close in around us as we moved together, our bodies entwined in a way that felt so right, so inevitable, that I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop us. When it was over, we lay there together, our bodies tangled, the silence between us heavier than it had ever been. The weight of what we had just done hung over us, but neither of us moved to speak. Neither of us knew how to undo the damage we had caused. I turned to look at her, my heart still racing. Her face was flushed, her breathing still uneven. She met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw the truth in her eyes. "We can't take this back, can we?" she asked, her voice quiet and unsure. I shook my head slowly. "No," I whispered, "but we're in this together now." The silence between us spoke louder than anything I could say, and the truth was I didn't know how to move forward from here. The silence that followed the night we crossed the line was suffocating. As I lay in bed, the quiet hum of the house felt like an oppressive weight pressing against my chest. I could hear Emma's breathing from across the room, shallow and uneven, but neither of us spoke. The glow from the streetlights outside filtered through the curtains, casting faint shadows across the room. But they did nothing to calm the storm of emotion swirling inside me. I had always known that things between Emma and me were different. Our bond was something more than the simple sibling relationship most people had. It was deeper, more complicated, but now everything was irrevocably altered. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't stop replaying what had happened. The kiss, the touch, the overwhelming rush of desire that had flooded through me in that moment. Part of me wanted to push it all away, to pretend it had never happened, but the other part, the part that felt alive in a way I hadn't known before, was terrified of what might happen if I ignored it. I heard the soft rustle of sheets as Emma shifted in her bed. "Leah," she said, her voice quiet, almost uncertain. "Are you awake?" I turned my head slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. They were wide, filled with the same confusion and uncertainty I felt. "Yeah," I said softly. "I'm awake." She shifted again, sitting up slowly. The moonlight spilled across her face, casting a silvery glow on her features, making her look more fragile than I had ever seen her. "I don't know what to do now," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I should regret what happened or if I should just let it be." I didn't answer right away. What could I say? Regret it? I couldn't. Not entirely. But there was so much about what had happened that felt wrong, so much that I couldn't quite reconcile with the person I had always been. "I don't think we can just pretend it didn't happen," I said finally, my voice steady despite the emotions twisting inside me. "But I also don't know what to do now, Emma. I don't know what happens next." There was a long pause as she stared at me, her eyes searching for something in mine. Then she moved to the edge of the bed, her feet brushing against the cool floor. She stood up, walking towards the window, her silhouette outlined against the dim light outside. "I can't stop thinking about it," she admitted softly. "I don't know if that's normal or if I'm just broken." The words struck me like a blow to the chest. Broken? Was that what we were? Had we ruined something unfixable by letting desire take over? Or was this simply something that happened? Something that no one could explain away with the easy answers. I followed her to the window, standing behind her. "Emma," I said softly, my hand coming to rest gently on her shoulder. "I don't think you're broken, but I do think we have to figure this out. We can't let this define us. We can't let it control us." She turned to face me then, her eyes wide with emotion, a tear escaping down her cheek. "But I want it, Leah. I wanted it. I still do." Her words hit me like a shockwave. They shook everything I thought I knew about myself. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. How could I even begin to answer her? She wasn't just talking about the kiss anymore, she was talking about everything that had followed. The intimacy, the way we'd crossed a line neither of us could ever uncross. "Ish, I know," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I wanted it too." We stood there in the silence for a moment, the weight of our shared feelings hanging between us. The air felt charged, thick with a tension that neither of us seemed able to escape. Emma was still crying, her shoulders trembling as she wiped at her eyes, but she didn't look away from me. "What does this mean for us?" she asked, her voice broken. "What happens next, Leah? Are we supposed to pretend like nothing happened? Or is this something we have to talk about?" "I don't know," I said, swallowing hard. "I don't know if we can go back to the way things were, but I don't want to lose you, Emma. I don't want to lose us." Her eyes softened then, the raw pain in her expression slowly giving way to something gentler. She stepped closer, her hand reaching for mine, fingers trembling as they brushed against my skin. "I don't want to lose you either," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. I looked down at our hands, my heart racing in my chest as I felt her warmth against me. This wasn't just a matter of what had happened. This was a matter of us, of who we were together and who we could be in the aftermath. There was so much uncertainty between us now, so much pain and confusion, but there was also something undeniable. A connection that neither of us could shake. "I don't know what the future holds, Emma," I said, my voice breaking, "but I know that whatever happens, I'll be here. We'll figure this out together, but we have to take it one step at a time. We can't rush this." She nodded, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips. I can do that, she said quietly. I'll take it one step at a time. The room fell quiet again, but this time, the silence didn't feel as heavy. It was still filled with uncertainty, yes, but also a fragile sense of understanding. We didn't know what would come next, and we didn't know if we could ever truly go back to the way things were, but for now, this moment felt like a step forward. Later that night, as we lay in our separate beds, I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. The kiss, the touch, the words we had shared. It all felt like a dream. I might wake up from it any moment. And yet, I knew it wasn't a dream, it was real. The reality of what had happened hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore, and as much as I wanted to pretend like nothing had changed, a small part of me knew that everything had. The next few days passed in a blur. We kept our distance, both of us needing time to process what we had done. I didn't know how to act around her, and I didn't know how she was feeling. It was as if the lines between us had been redrawn, and neither of us knew where we stood anymore. But even in the silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. And as much as I feared what that might mean, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder if deep down, it was only the beginning. When I looked at her, I knew there was no going back. But was that a good thing, or something we'd come to regret? Let me know in the comments.